My name is Sabrina Butler, and I want to talk to you concerning my case. I was charged with capital murder in the course of child abuse in 1989 for the death of my son in Columbus, Mississippi. I was living in an apartment complex there, and I stayed there for only 4 months. And when I moved into these apartments, no one knew me. I didn't have a phone or a car. I was only 17 years old. But this particular day, I decided that I wanted to go jogging. I put my son to sleep and I put him in his bed and I left the house and jogged up to the end of the street. When I got back, I went to the kitchen to get him a bottle and went in his room and noticed that he wasn't breathing. And automatically I panicked because I didn't know, what to do. Um, so I ran to the different apartment complexes trying to get someone to help me. And the first lady that came out, she wouldn't help me. She said that her children were in bed and she didn't have time. So she closed the door in my face, and that left me trying to just scream and holler to get anyone that I could listen to me, help me with my son. So when I got downstairs, I finally got this lady who grabbed my son. She took him into her apartment, put him on the floor, and she started CPR. I ran out to try to get someone else to help me. And when I finally found someone, I ran back in and she told me to hold his nose, blow in his mouth, and press in his stomach. But later I found out that I applied adult CPR to a 9-month-old all the way to the hospital. I was scared to death. I didn't know what to do. I had never done CPR before, and it was horrible. I tried to do what I could to get him to breathe, but that was one of the hardest things to go through in my life because, I didn't know what was wrong. So when I got to the hospital, they took him from me and carried him in the back. And the emotions and the feelings that I had at the time was that, man, you are in trouble. You're in trouble for this. You shouldn't have left your children, your son at the house by himself. That was the first thing came to my mind. But to be charged with murder was far beyond anything that I could have thought about. But I knew that, it was wrong for leaving him at the house by himself. So I said to myself that I couldn't be honest. I had to lie. So that's what I did. When they asked me questions, I just made up all kind of things. And, my stories were different stories. So when I left the hospital, I went home. I was just a mess. I couldn't imagine what was going on. I didn't know what to think. I was there alone, didn't have anybody, my mom, nobody, because I had been in Columbus on my own since I was 14 years old. I had an older son who was with his grandparents, and I only had my younger son at the time. So when I got up the next morning, I couldn't wait to try to get to the hospital to see what an autopsy report would say, but not knowing that it takes a while for them to determine the cause of death. So when I got there, the detectives were there and they took me back down they wanted to take me to the police station. They got me to the police station and they started questioning me. When they started questioning me, they just started screaming and yelling. And they were saying, you beat your baby, you stomped him, this is what you did. And I had nobody there to help me, no parents, no nothing, never been interrogated like that before. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. This interrogation went on for 4 hours. They kept saying, you murdered your baby. This is what you did. And at first, I was crying and screaming. I was trying to tell them, actually what happened. They didn't want to hear that. So the main detective, he wrote the statement out and shoved it in my face and told me to sign it. And my last ditch effort to show that I didn't commit a crime, I signed it at the bottom of the page. That's what I did. I didn't sign where he told me to, hoping that someone would see, that this was all wrong. After they charged me with capital murder, they put me in the county jail. When I went to the county jail, I sat in the county jail a whole year before I even saw my attorneys. I saw my attorneys 2 days before trial. And they didn't give me no preparation, didn't tell me, what I should be doing or anything like that. So I didn't know what to do. I just was told to sit and look at the jury. So when I got to the court system, only thing at that age, being 18, I was 18 by then, I noticed that the jury was not a jury of my peers. They were more concerned with what the district attorney had to say as opposed to what my attorneys. Every time my attorney stood up and tried to give a, description and tell them what had happened in my case, they were unconcerned. They were looking on the floor. They were looking at the ceiling. They was looking around like, just ignoring, completely ignoring. And I knew myself then that my life was over. I just felt it because, here I am, African Americans, poor, sitting in this courtroom with a jury that didn't look like me. I just knew it. And that's exactly what happened. My attorneys didn't call any witnesses in my case. All the witnesses that I did have were subpoenaed by the district attorney and locked in rooms and never called to testify. So I received the death penalty. I was sentenced to die March the 13th of 1990. My death date was July the 2nd of 1990. And when I made it to death row, I was 19 years old. Having to go inside of a place that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, innocent, made it 10 times worse. To be put on death row and accused of killing your own child is one of the worst things that can happen to anyone. I sat on death row 2 years, 9 months, no human contact, and it was horrible. I went through a lot, but the worst part of that was my death date came, which was July the 2nd of 1990, and I did not know that the state had to exhaust all state remedies before they could carry out a death sentence. No one told me that. So that was the day that I paced the floors. I thought that my life was over because I did not know. It was another girl at the time that was on death row with me. She, me and her got to be friends through the toilet on the floor. That's how I found out who she was. And she started talking to me, and it's sad when another inmate has to tell you legal proceedings. That was crazy. But even though the first attorneys that I had did not do what they should have done in my case, I ended up with 2 sets of death row pro bono attorneys who were magnificent. They came in, my case was overturned. They found out that my son had heart problems, kidney problems, and chronic bowel syndrome. It was nothing that I did to cause his death. I just didn't know how to do CPR. They were awesome. And in cases, I think that is the main component to a case when you have a defendant, someone that's, on trial for their life. And if it had not been for Clive Stafford Smith or Rob McDuff, I don't know where I would be. I probably wouldn't even be alive today talking to you. My case, it was a horrible experience, and I don't wish that on anyone. And I try to speak as much as I can. I work with this organization called Witness to Innocence, and we're all death row exonerees who have been taken from our homes and damn near killed for crimes we never committed. And in those cases, we had good lawyers who finally came in and took on the role of helping us to free ourselves. And that's basically what my case is about. It made me be the first woman in the United States ever to be exonerated from death row. I no longer live in Mississippi. I moved to Memphis. And I'm here now, and I currently work with the people here in Memphis too as well to try to show some light or gain light onto the injustices we face within the death penalty. And that is my story.